Hey guys, welcome back. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe because this is an episode you do not want to meet. Today, I am having a conversation with Yohan Jacob from Retailbound. So if you are an online seller, that you have your own D2C brand, you're selling a custom product, and you have been really tempted to explore retail, but because of COVID or just really not understanding that channel, you've put that on pause, but you want to learn more, this is the episode for you. So Retailbound, I'm going to let Yohan get into exactly what they do, but they work on placing brands with retailers. And I'm really pumped today to actually go into how a brand like yours, if you're watching this, can tap into an offline retail ecosystem as opposed to only having one channel if you're selling on Shopify or if you're selling on Amazon. So I am really excited that you're here.
Thanks for having me, by the way.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I think that you're going to be the best person at introducing yourself because I don't know if I could do it justice. You've been with Retailbound now for over 14 years. You've worked with, hundreds of different businesses at this point, maybe even thousands.
Thousands, yes.
Yeah,
Thousands.
exactly. Just to expand this as a channel for them. And you work over Europe and North America. But for someone who has never heard of Retailbound or your work, I'd love it if you could just take a couple of minutes to kind of go through what it is the work that you do and how you got into it.
Sure, definitely. Thank you for having me on your podcast here. So Retailbound, we're a retail solutions agency that helps innovate brand scale and retail. We help clients both in B2C retail, like a brick and mortar, like an online, like a Kel, like a TV direct response. We also have clients both in B2B, like hospitality, contract, healthcare, government education. We're one of the few agencies that help brands in both the North American retailers as well as European retailers. What makes us a little different, besides our good looks and sparking personality, is that our team, our consultants like myself, have been on both sides of the buyer's desk. So meaning that we've been in the shoes of our client, the small $1 million B2C, brand is on Amazon, on an e-tail site. So I said, maybe I want to go to Best Buy, maybe I want to sell to Costco or Walmart. And I'm not a brand like a Sony or Rubbermaid. I don't have the experience, I don't have the connections, right? And
Huge.
And making every mistake and then some in the book. But also we've been large retail merchants, the shoes of their customer, the one who actually makes the yay or nay, right? And me as a merchant for two different billion-dollar retailers, I've seen the good, the bad, and ugly. And I would say that the reason why Retailbound was created many, many years ago was to help brands avoid some of the common pitfalls that I made back in the early 90s when I first started out.
Yeah.
Like a job interview, retail buyers can tell when which brands are ready to work with them and which ones aren't. The ones that aren't ready to work with them waste their time, waste the buyer's time, and don't get a second chance of making a first impression.
That's huge. And I'm curious, with Retailbound, like someone who's novice in retail, I've seen it where sellers are thinking, I want to get into Best Buy. I want to go big box retailers immediately, while others who've been through the trenches before actually recommend that you don't start with big box retailers, recommend that you start with more boutique. I'm curious, like, what is your take on that if you have a brand that's just getting into retail and opening that up?
That's a great question. I would say that not every situation is the same for every brand, and we've, since 2008, our team has consulted, mentored, educated over 4,000 brands around the world. And every strategy is different. It's customized, right? It depends on your level of risk. However, we want to start small. We believe, unlike our competitors, our clients' money is our money, right?
Yeah.
So we don't want to, could we get you into Walmart, all stores? Perhaps, right? But it's 4,000 stores, and a lot of the risk is actually all borne on the brand. So if it doesn't sell or it does horrible, then you're buying back all the inventory, right, as an option, right? So typically, we believe in a slow burn. So maybe it's, depending on the brand, it's maybe some e-tail, maybe it's smaller retail. You mentioned boutique. Maybe it's on air like QVC. Let's see how sales are going, right? Let's make sure your supply chain is bulletproof.
Yep.
And why? Make sure you're getting paid.
Yeah.
Right? And once all three things are working, sales, supply chain, and getting paid, then it makes sense to scale up for bigger opportunity and get more risk.
And I've heard too that big box retailers require better deal terms and margins on product to sell in volume versus a smaller retailer. Is that true?
Correct. Obviously, they call it most favored nation pricing. So that means, Best Buy and Walmart should be able to get a better price than a small Main Street USA retailer, right? Now, some brands may say, I'll give you one price. I don't care if it's Best Buy or it's Main Street USA. However, they may alter some of the rebates or incentives on the back end to give Best Buy an advantage. That's why. Best Buy and other retailers, they're buying a lot of volume, so they expect a lower price than a small retailer on Main Street buying 2-3 units per year.
Makes sense. And it's interesting. You mentioned QVC. Like, do you also look to get products listed with QVC? QVC?
Yep. QVC does, obviously there's a lot more volume on air at QVC or ASN here in the US or the shopping channel up in Canada. But it's a great way, to get your brand exposed to millions. It's literally a free TV commercial, right? And so we've had a lot of our brands launch on QVC or ASN, done very well. And we've used that video, that little 8-minute video, to show to a buyer at Office Depot or Best Buy or even Apple, hey, you're not the first buyer. So it kind of reduced the risk of another buyer. Oh, you went on QVC? Let's have a conversation. Yeah,
because likely if you're on QVC, you're doing volume at that point.
Well, we hope. Typically with QVC, like any like on the retail perspective, like a Best Buy, if there's interest, they'll probably put the brand on .com for sure.
Yep.
And maybe even a couple of stores as a test. With QVC, very similar. They may put you on air at a certain time frame, right? And with QVC, unlike a traditional retail, looks at sales per square footage. QVC looks at sales per dollars per minute on air. So maybe, hey, we want to do $10,000 per minute on air for the next 5 minutes. That's $50,000, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't hit that, all right, fine. Is there an opportunity to do another test down the road? So QVC is a great way of testing. Typically in cores 1, 2, and 3, and then products that's successful get a second chance during Q4 where they drive a lot more volume.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm curious. A lot of the brands we work with get approached by online resellers like Touch of Modern.
Yep.
Do you look at pitching online resellers too, or are you strictly offline?
All of the above. Honestly, people like Touch of Modern or Zulily, which is like a division of QVC, HN. A lot of these daily deal sites, or even Stack Conference, another one.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful. It's very easy to get hooked because you're trying to sell at a very aggressive price. But the problem is that a lot of retail buyers do belong to the feeds of Touch of Modern or Modern Look or Zulily, right? So if that price retails, let's say that you did a pair of headphones, it's $99. On Touch of Modern, it's at $4.99 for that 3-day or 5-day event. You do it once a month, once a quarter. If I go to Best Buy and say, hey, it's a $99 headphone, like, no. I've been seeing on Zulily or Touch of Modern for $49. My price is $49, not $99. So you gotta be really careful on busting the map price, or it'd be tough to sell every day with a traditional retail like a Best Buy or an Apple.
Completely makes sense. Okay, so I want to get into the pandemic talk, if that's cool. So, okay, what perception is that you see a lot of retailers closing down, where then you also see some retailers thriving amid the pandemic because they pivoted to online, or they've done something to kind of stay ahead of the trends. And so buyers, I'm curious, what is your perception of retail as a sales channel now that the pandemic has affected small businesses the way it has?
Sure. So a couple of things. So obviously COVID or the pandemic has definitely changed retail, for the bad or for the good, depending on your philosophy and where you think. I would say that a lot of retailers have up their game. I think the pandemic maybe have shut down some of those weaker retailers that like a Sears or a Paylor Shoes or even a Fry's that maybe was on their last leg and it just kind of found with the last chapter in the book. But I think the retailers that survived, as you said earlier, it beefed up. They're both their mobile and web platforms.
Yeah.
Make it easier. A lot more people shopped online in 2020 than ever before. I would say a lot of retail made it easier for customers to maybe shop online and pick up in store by curbside. I personally love that. I'm not a shopper in nature, and so if I can shop online and I drive my car over my hood of my SUV, put that bag of dog food, and off I go. It's great. No need to wait in line for someone in front of me who's got paid by check or by pennies, right? So it was a very efficient way. I would say retail is not dead. I think it's changed. I think for young brands, that are considering retail, there's a couple reasons why you want to. One, adding name retailers like a Best Buy or a Walmart on your where to buy page. Yeah, it adds legitimacy, right? I mean, it's easy to get on Amazon or even Walmart Marketplace, and that's great. We have a Best Buy or a Target or QVC, which is a very curated assortment of products online as well as in store. It adds legitimacy. Also, having retailers on your where to buy page gives your customer more options of where to buy. I'm a Prime member, right? I'm also a Best Buy Rewards member. So depending on who has a better price, I'll look at Amazon and Walmart first, Amazon or Best Buy first, before considering other retailers, right? And finally, I think having other retailers on your where to buy exposes your brand to opens millions and millions of people who buy. I mean, if I'm on my e-tail site, I have a very small percent of people I can attract based on my budget of marketing. When I go to Best Buy, Home Depot, Apple, a lot more eyeballs can potentially see my product every single day.
Gotcha. So at what point with a brand that they're considering expansion onto other channels, retail in this conversation, when would you say someone is ready to explore retail, and when are they too early?
Sure. So let's start with the first one. So, the brands that are ready for retail must be already having a consistent amount of sales, right, on their e-tail or their marketplace sites like Amazon, right? So you have some good sales, your returns, right, are fairly low. You have a high number of verified customer reviews, right? You have the content, like A+ content, and then you have the cap, because retail is not cheap. Putting it on a BestBuy.com, hoping that it sells organically, is not the strategy. You need to have a marketing plan, right, where it's doing influencer marketing, PR, paid search, doing promotions, some of the marketing levers that maybe a retail may offer to brands. A lot of young brands don't understand that it takes money to make money, right? Put it on Best Buy or Walmart and hope it sells is not the right strategy. And once you do that strategy, don't last very long in retail. So I think there's definitely opportunities for young brands to expose themselves on that platform.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And as for your other one, for brands that are too early,
that's right.
Many retail buyers are very risk averse. They kind of laugh. They don't want to be the first buyer to try it, but they don't want to be the last buyer as well, right? They don't want to be told by their boss, "Hey, Yohan, see our competitor? They did a great deal. Why did we get this?" Well, we could have, but
we missed it.
So I would say for brands that haven't launched on their own e-tail Amazon, right? It's too early, right? Before you go to Best Buy or Walmart, even if you have more money in God, try it on some other platforms like an Amazon or another marketplace site. Kind of like get your kinks out of the way, right? Because when you go to Best Buy or Walmart, now you're playing the big leagues, right? You make one mistake like shipping incomplete, right? Shipping the wrong warehouse. No packets. Some of those you'll get penalty charges for certain mistakes you make. With Amazon, you get those, but it's not as harsh as with a Best Buy or a Walmart. So you want to kind of get all your products, all your stuff on Amazon and smaller retail before you go to the big boys like Apple, Best Buy, or Walmart.
So I don't know if you could speak to this, but deep pockets is Best Buy, right? You need that for the inventory. Thing. Yeah, it's just you're playing in the big leagues, which requires a lot of capital. Where do people get that money? Is that a inventory financing loan? Is that investors? Is that right? Like, what does that look like?
All above. Yeah, I would say that majority of our clients are young brands that are probably doing around that $0 to $20 million in business, and they're always continue to fundraise. Mm-hmm. Right? There's never a down day. It's like hey, I raised my first $5 million. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna try to get another $5 million. Right? And I think you need some capital to handle large POs potentially. Again, for most brands that you and I are probably working with, they're probably .com, maybe a couple of stores, so the level of POs will be smaller. However, you're probably wait 30 to 90 days of getting paid. So you already paid your factory now for that particular case of headphones.
Yeah.
And now you had to wait 30, 60, 90 days to get paid by Best Buy on the units that they bought or they shipped. So I would say that's one way. The other way is for if you get an opportunity for a large PO from a Best Buy or Walmart, any U.S. bank will factor that because it's a well-known company, right? If you got a PO from a small e-tailer, you're on your own. But for a large brand name retailer like a Walmart or Best Buy,
significant.
Every bank will definitely. And then there's third-party companies that we know of and you know of as well that do factor purchase orders.
Yeah, makes sense. So let's talk about how to get into some of these retailers and what that. So, okay, where I'd like to go here is how does that process look in terms of initiating a conversation, either through when someone's working with you or just on their own, like what that deal flow looks like, and also what are some things that buyers look for. So let's, I guess, start with like just painting a picture of what the process looks like first.
So the process is getting kind of the buyer, right? That's what decision maker. And unfortunately, if you're doing it by yourself, there's a lot of gatekeepers. I mean, when I was a retail buyer, very few people got to me, right? Because there are there's layers of protection, right? Because every day I get 1,000 phone calls. I did get a lot of phone calls and emails, but again, it was not as many because we had a gatekeeper in place to kind of prevent those get to my level, right? And so if you do get talked to a buyer in person on the phone, or at a trade show, or via email, again, you gotta be polished and ready to go. You can't fake it till you make it. You gotta make sure
you have to be ready.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have a company like a Retailbound that has connections and experience, you're doing it yourself. It's basically the cold call, cold email, right? Or even exhibiting at trade shows. As trade shows are starting to open up now, they're more. Last week was the hardware show in Las Vegas.
Yep.
The next major trade show in consumer product goods would be the Consumer Electronics Show. That's in Vegas in January. Got Toy Fair in New York in February, and the Hauser Show in Chicago in March. So trade shows are a great way of meeting buyers in person, right? Hopefully you can assemble a mail list. But that'd be the way. If you get a chance to talk to a buyer, right, you kind of tell them, who you are, the name of your company. Ask if this is a good time to talk. If it's a cold call, most buyers aren't expecting your call. They don't have time for a 30-minute sales spiel, and then you have about maybe 2 or 3 minutes to go through an overview of why you think your product would fit. But really the purpose of a cold call with a buyer is not try to sell the buyer on your product, but try to land a second date, right? To get where it's another phone call or even a face-to-face meeting. I think a lot of young brands, when I was a buyer, would call, "Hey, my name is so-and-so," and go through the pitch. Right?
And they're like,
at time, right?
Not ready.
Another option, which is the more likely one, is where young brands find where a sales rep, a distributor, or a Retailbound who has the connections, right, with those buyers. We work with over 150 retailers here in North America. Not including all the thousands of retailers done through distributors. We have 200 sales reps that are local to each market, whether it's Minneapolis or Chicago or New York or LA. As well as distributors, because for smaller brands that you and I may work on, it's rare that a Best Buy would spend a lot of time of setting up a one SKU vendor. Most likely they'll go through a distributor, right? That would be the in between the brand and the retail partner.
Makes sense. So you get on a call, the buyer shows interest, and you get a second date, which I love how you say that. First off, to get the second date, if you only have 3 minutes to spend with a buyer who has never heard of you before, what would you focus on in that 3 minutes?
What makes you different, right? I mean, especially, and hopefully you've done your research before you reach out to the buyer, what he or she may have in store or online. So if you offer another iPhone case, right? And Best Buy has 900 iPhone cases, right?
Why yours?
Why yours, right? I have 900 iPhone cases, right?
Yeah.
Today, right now, we have a line of massage guns. Now, massage guns, like headphones, are becoming commoditized. There's there's a couple of big brands, and a lot of small Chinese brands, right? So how do you stand out? Right? So if we're talking to Best Buy or Dick's Sporting Goods, to retail an example, we're kind of explaining, our established sales we already have and the reviews we have. We're talking about some of the brand ambassadors we have. And finally, we're talking about marketing dollars we have set aside to drive sales. Because at the end of the day, all Best Buy and other retailers are going to do is offer a platform for that small brand to either succeed or fail. Best Buy and other retailers are not going to market this one SKU vendor to community. It's up to the brand to utilize whatever leverage is to drive sales to Best Buy.
Yeah, which leads me, I guess, into the second date and what buyers look for.
Yeah.
So you've hit on a couple of mistakes that people make already, which is like, let's just say you're pitching another peanut butter to a grocery store.
Sure.
And you say, hey, I'm selling a peanut butter. And the buyer says, okay, I have 52 brands. But if you lead with, hey, I'm offering a keto peanut butter, you don't offer any keto offerings in this aisle. And we've seen an increase in demographic spend for ketosis being the next big trend. And you're not offering that to your customers. We provide that solution. I'd love to get a couple of minutes of your time. That is something that shows you've done your homework. You've shown an opportunity for them to have an advantage by providing a solution to their customers that's not currently available. Then you get your foot in the door and you have this meeting. So when you finally have 15 minutes, either virtual, phone call, whatever, what happens in that meeting and what should you bring to be prepared?
So a couple of things here. So that's great. So obviously, if there's a gap in that buyer's assortment, right? You want definitely, and I would say most buyers, they're overworked. It's the only job in corporate retail that affects every buying department, where they affect in-store marketing, they affect logistics, IT, store operations, and so forth. So the one thing I always tell brands is you can make the bar shop easier, right? You guarantee a third date or a fourth date. So I would say that, what makes you different, right? Where's your gap, right? Yep. You also want to talk about, at least at a high level, margins. Right. Maybe your peanut butter is better. Yeah. But if the margin requirement in this category is 60 points of margin, and you're coming at 20 points,
there's not a big enough.
Yeah. Buyers have three KPIs, key performance indicators. One is, will your product drive top line sales growth? Right. Secondly, will your product drive bottom line profit? And third, will your product turn or sell X number of times? So if peanut butter being a consumable, it probably has a very high turn ratio in a grocery store versus a $10,000 massage chair, right? If I sell one or two per month at best, right? So if you can hit those three KPIs, right, it's great. Other thing I'll look at too is in some categories like peanut butter, since it's a very stable category, a buyer may not change frequently. You might be satisfied. There's a lot of work for in-store to change the planogram, especially if they have hundreds or thousands of stores, right? In other categories like consumer electronics, where it does change frequently, buyers are probably more apt at seeing new products that are always changing their shelf space constantly.
Totally, that makes sense. One thing that you have hit on, but I didn't know when I learned about retail, and a lot of beginner brands don't, is they originally a lot of people will think, brands will think, I'm going to get into retail because it's going to help me build my customer base. I think that's the wrong way in, because you mentioned this a few times where the buyer needs to know how you're going to drive them traffic. So I
Correct.
think that's another huge mistake that people make because they think, oh, great, I'm going to get circulation. But actually, what the brand really wants to know is how are you going to drive people into their store to buy your product?
And typically, when we're working with a client, that's one of our things we're working on is their marketing plan. Because again, if it sits on the shelf, click and done, it's not good for the retailer and not good for the brand, right? So we spend a lot of time, like our competitors, in developing that marketing program, and then we actually keep that program on behalf of our client, so they are getting those repeat POs. If you're doing a good job and you are doing those repeat purchase orders with a retailer, the good chance you'll get expanded shelf space. So maybe today I have one iPhone case at Best Buy, knock out of the park. Next year, you may give me an opportunity to put 2 iPhone cases or 10 iPhone cases or other products. And if I continue to do a great job, the good chance I can become a long-term vendor partner with a Best Buy. And that's what I think a lot of brands understand is they think short-term. Let me get my foot in the door at Best Buy. I'm done. Off to the next retailer. As you know, the remote agency owners, it's easier to keep a client, right, than trying to find a new client, right?
Yeah.
And retailers are going to do all this work, and you set up either directly or indirectly. The important is a brand to do the heavy lifting to maintain a relationship. It's like a marriage, right? If you don't put time into it, you're not going to last very long with your spouse, right?
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of young brands hire us because they don't have the time or the experience to maintain that marriage, right? So we are literally the marriage counselor between the brand and the retailer, keeping them going for hopefully years to come.
Which actually, that beautifully leads into my next point. So you know Jamstack because we've kind of talked about Jamstack in the past. So if you're watching this, you don't know what Jamstack is. It is a portable electric guitar amplifier. So essentially, it is a speaker that connects to the bottom of your guitar, so you can play electric guitar anywhere you want without cords, amps, etc. It solves a massive problem. It is honestly a category disruptor because there's nothing like it in the guitar tech space. And when Jamstack goes into retail, there's a massive education component to it, where if we have Jamstack listed in a local boutique, and if the reps don't know what it is, how can they refer it to someone coming in looking for that or looking for a solution? So I'm curious, on the managed side, that's something a lot of founders don't realize is that onboarding process of how can you educate someone on how to use your product or even get the retailer to sell your product when and so I'd love to know how you guys look to manage that as kind of the marriage counselor, but also if you have any practical tips for someone managing that themselves.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and that's why companies do hire us because they don't have that time. But I would say the first thing, it boils down to your retail packaging, right? That your retail packaging has to be the best seller for. I think companies say a lot of brands, especially like a Jamstack, is in one of the C space. They all want to be like Apple. They want a white, clean box, right?
Minimal.
That kind of tells
no instructions.
Story like this. Here's a white box. Now, what is it? I don't know. It looks like a robot. It looks like a toy. I don't know. Right now, I'll see if someone picks it up and okay, there's some content here, but it's a pretty box.
It's very
like
pretty,
Apple, right? But you're not an Apple, right? So I would say your packaging definitely has to be where you spend. If I spend money, that's where I would spend money is on the packaging.
Yeah.
Next, I would look at is any opportunity for in-store POP, point of purchase displays, or educational signing. I also look at training. A lot of retailers, like a Best Buy or a Target, does offer training. It could be in person, or in today's world now, it could be virtual. It could be a PDF they upload to the employee's intranet or dashboard, and they can log in. But I would say that definitely you want to educate, your customer, your packaging, as well as your PR, your marketing, all that kind of stuff, and then where to buy. And then when people do go to the store to buy product X, Y, Z, you've already spent the time and effort in training the sales associates, right? Yeah. Hey, I see 10 headphones on this planogram. Who do you recommend, right? And you've done the training of, well, based on where you're at, based on your needs. Yeah. Product A is better than product B versus C.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm wondering what else I should ask you. I have a couple more questions.
Size large. My favorite color is blue. I like long walks on the beach. But that's the questions.
And you comb your hair every day.
Yes, I do. At least once.
One thing, okay, if you can give one piece of advice to somebody starting retail, what would that be?
I would say that I kind of gave one tip about making the buyer job easier. If I had to give you another tip of making the buyer job easier is always follow through on your commitments, right?
Yeah.
Retail buyers, we're always being sold to, right? Buy this, buy that, right? But very few actually follow through on promises. I would say, I did over $850 million as a buyer. And I would say less than 10% of my vendors, what I call true vendor partners, which means that 90% of them could replace like that if I wanted to, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say that if you are working with a retail buyer, that whatever they ask you for, they're not asking if they're bored.
Yeah.
They're trying to do their job, right? And so just if you make a commitment, follow through on it. That'd be the other tip, other than always try to find a way to make the buyer job look good, and you should have a pretty good success in a career in the retail space.
Awesome. Actually, one thing I did just think of is the negative side of retail, where you get a big purchase order and the day comes when they are supposed to pay for it, and either it's late or you get bad deal terms. That's two completely different conversations. But how often does it happen when the buyer doesn't hold up their end of the agreement and they pay you late, and that messes with your cash flow because you've got to pay a manufacturer?
Sure. So majority of the bigger retailers do pay on time. That's just the nature of the game. You may have, I think it's more the smaller retailers that are more cash strapped. And hopefully, we tell our clients, that, we're great to sell retail X, Y, Z, but you need to do your homework, If they're a public company, read their annual reports, read some of the rags. How are they doing, right? Check out their assortment. If it hasn't been, if they're out of stock in half the stores, means they're having some issues with cash flow, right? So do your home before you approach a retailer, right? You need to do your homework, right? It's like if you were on hey, I got set on a blind date. I'm gonna do some Google searching on that future Mrs. or Mrs. and see, is he or she a hot mess, right? So you need to do your research before you approach that retailer. But at the same time, if a retailer approaches you, and that happens with some of our clients, you need to do all your legwork to make sure that it's truly a partnership between you and the retail. But it's been a long time. The only time we've had a client not get paid, and it's been rare, is when a retailer goes bankrupt, like Brookstone did back in 2014, or Fry's did in 2020, right? And usually you'll get these rumors, or you might see the writing on the wall. So you try to lessen your risk in store, right? Mm-hmm. So if it does happen, they do go bankrupt. Hopefully you've lessened your exposure in that particular retailer.
That makes sense. Do your homework. And also with deal terms, having the wrong payment terms, not wrong, but ones that are due too soon, net 30, potentially next 60. Do you help with the deal structure? Do you help with that and getting proper payment terms with your clients?
So honestly, when you're a small brand, you don't have much leverage, right?
Yes.
Some retailers, may say, hey, if you can't do net 60, we do early payment discount. So maybe it's 2% 30. Net 60 means they pay invoice in 30 days or less. They get an additional 2%. If you can afford that, great, right? Some retailers, instead of the net 30, net 60, may ask for consignment, which basically means that they don't pay for the entire product or the stock. They only pay when the product he sells to their store or their website, right? So I would say we do help with the negotiation of the terms, but typically terms are the least negotiable. There's other things in the vendor agreement, such as prepaid freight, defective allowances, marketing allowances, and so forth. That are a little more negotiable. Where payment terms, typically the buyer, he or she is really the finance or account that actually has the control of at least the payment terms. Love
that. My second last question is, what should I have asked you that I haven't?
Where do you see retail next year? I guess would be the one that I would ask. I would say
yes.
I would say honestly, with the issues with shipping and the cost increases, it'll probably continue throughout 2022, maybe into 2023. We'll see. I say that retail is still a viable option for many brands. I would say that for any brand that's doing well on their website or Amazon, be realistic. Just because you do $1 million a month on Amazon Doesn't mean Best Buy is going to be hungry for your business, right? There's a lot of brands that are doing $1 million on Amazon that still don't interest Best Buy, right? There's other factors buyers look at other than your sales. So be realistic, be humble, right? When you're talking to a buyer, don't be cocky or condescending.
Gotcha.
But I think there's definitely opportunity for brands that want to scale both in the U.S. and Canada with the retailers I mentioned on this call today.
Yeah. Awesome. And last question.
Yeah.
Brands that want to learn more about working with you,
Sure.
who is your ideal customer, number one, or ideal brand, and also where can people learn more about working with you and your team?
Sure. So the easiest place is go to our website, which is retailbound.com, retailbound.com. And then the type of brands we work with, we look at three things before we say yes. We like many consultants, we probably turn down more clients than we like, but because our only asset is time. So we look at three things. We look at is the product unique? Is it different? Does it solve a need? Is there margin? If it's another iPhone case or another pair of Bluetooth headphones, those are really based on price, and we don't really focus on more price-sensitive products. We look at, as we mentioned earlier, are they capitalized? So they're an inventor or a moonlighter. We might say, hey, it looks great, you're doing awesome, but you might not continue to keep because we don't want to expose your brand to a lot of risk. We believe your money is our money, right? So we always tell, as long as you have a little money and you're willing to take the risk, it's another thing we'll look at. But the third thing we'll look at before we say yes to a brand is we call the intangibles. We call the nice guy effect. If they're nice people like you, we'll definitely consider it stronger than the product and their capital.
Yeah.
Because we enjoy working with nice people, and I'm proud to say in 13, 14 years of business, we've never, knock on wood, been fired as a consultant because, like you, we don't make promises we don't keep.
Yeah.
And that's why. So those are the reasons we look at. We look at the product. They have a little money, but more important, are they nice people like you?
Yeah, and it shows because when you are selective with who you work with, it means that you're working with the right people that you're going to get results with, right? So you're not wasting your time or their time as well, or your buyer's time, because I assume you've really got to make sure that you're nurturing those relationships with buyers.
The reason why buyers like working with Retailbound, because since we are buyers, we've been in their shoes.
Yeah.
We are actually doing some of the work for it. We are vetting the bad from the good, right? And so we're bringing a potential a client to a Best Buy or an Apple or a Costco. They know they've gone through the hard work through our team and getting it retail ready and placed with the right reps and distributors and 3PLs. Occasionally it might be a misfire, and if by chance a client is rare, drops the ball with a Best Buy or a Costco, yes, the retail holds the vendor responsible for dropping the ball. Yeah. But it didn't hold me accountable because I'm the guy who made the introduction between client and Best Buy. So it's really important that we vet out the good and the bad and only show the best of the best to our retail partners like a Best Buy or a Costco or a QVC.
Which completely makes sense because there's three parts to the equation with that. So they all have to be balanced together. So
correct.
Oh man, Yohan, this has been phenomenal. Guys, I will put the links to everything below the video if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you can please thank Yohan for taking his time today by either liking this video or dropping a big thank you in the comments. And if you have any questions, you can find him either through me or whatnot. So we can just figure that out. And I'll stop rambling now.
By the way.
Yeah. Thank you. This was awesome. So anyway, we're going to wrap up the show, but I'll see you on the next episode.